broken system, chained and tangled up in lies. Voices shouting, screaming in defeat. Politicians playing games under darkened skies. Hope lost in the dust of the street. Red and blue, colors pouring from the sky. Debates turn to anger, the crowd gets loud. Punches flying in the blink of an eye. Truth buried deep beneath the shroud. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Faces on the screen, flashing perfect teeth. But behind those eyes, just rotting greed. Politicians turn to whispers beneath. They all just get what they need. Whispering conspiracies, drowning in their lies. Echoes of freedom, lost in cries. Spin the wheel of fate, let's see who rise. But this game will bleed you dry. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive.
Good morning and welcome to the bullpen. And it decided to put us into a scene that we used last week to try to fix everything, and it's a jacked up scene. So let's try this. See if we can hear Chad to start the show.
Can you hear me to start the show?
I can hear you. So
Awesome.
we
Now
might actually be able to get through this show without many technical difficulties, besides it choosing the wrong scene to go from the intro song.
on December 15th, 2024, Evie Mux became self-aware.
Get to the chopper. Well, how are you, sir?
I've just been the Army Navy game could have gone better because I root Army, but the aside from that, I was very happy with seeing Hegseth there having a good time. I was happy that DeSantis was not in the box. So good stuff. Everything was checked the right boxes for that one. So
Yeah, we had what? Trump, Vance, Hegseth, and
Elon, I think, was there.
Daniel Penny.
And then they brought Daniel Penny in.
Check your Windows settings. On
Yeah,
your
I
mic.
just changed it. It was
Okay.
Windows had adjusted it back down to 30.
As Windows will do to you.
Yeah,
and
so
Slender.
hopefully this is better now.
Yeah, you sound louder. So
Yeah,
we got.
I don't know. I don't know what the plan is for aside from using Penny for the photo op, but hopefully they give him like a Medal of Freedom or something. I don't know.
Right, it'd be nice. That's the least they could do.
Oh yeah, I
him
forgot.
having
Mike.
to go through
Yeah,
that.
Eric Myers. Mike Johnson was there too, and he still looks kind of out of place with the MAGA crew, but he's trying.
Yeah.
So
I didn't get to watch any of it, but yeah,
Navy was running all over Army. It was disappointing.
I mean, I live where the Air Force Academy is, so even though I don't really like the Air Force, that's who I tend to cheer for out of the military branches when it comes to sports. we got a lot to cover today. Do a quick rundown before we get into it. So,
Sure.
um, ABC owes $15 million to Donald Trump.
Yeah, they're giving
Uh,
it to his presidential library.
yep.
Do we know where
S-
that's going yet? It's got to be going next to Mar-a-Lago. It's got to be
oh
in
yeah,
Florida.
it's got to be within feet of a golf course. I
I
mean, I
the
guess he could put it over on like Toonberry over in
Trump's
over in
presidential
Britain.
library. Trump's presidential library is going to be awesome. It'll have like a 5-star hotel and golf course attached to it.
Yeah,
Like instead of just that housing my papers, I thought, wouldn't it be great for people to have a whole vacation at the Trump Presidential Library? It's the biggest, best presidential library.
it's huge. It's the
We have all the
best.
books at the library. I told them I want to make sure that you don't just have Hunger Games. I want the what is the one? I want the Handmaid's Tale on prominent display at my presidential
Right.
library.
You remember Alexandria? It's got nothing on Trump's library. Um, so Sonny's up to 7 retractions now, at least. We've got Doge and how that might work with entitlements. We've got whatever the hell is going on with the drones in New Jersey and now spreading across the country.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
showing up in Virginia now too. Governor Youngkin in Virginia
and Maryland.
is putting out statements about how the federal government is not doing anything to help them understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's weird. We've got Christopher Wray stepping down rather than getting fired. We've got Kimberly Guilfoyle, who I thought was still with Trump Jr., um, who is apparently not with Trump Jr. anymore,
They have not
being
officially
dragged as an
canceled. Yeah,
ambassador to Greece.
they didn't cancel officially. I think their engagement, but Trump Jr. has been out with other ladies prominently and publicly for a while now.
Yeah, I've seen that. So, but she was also very involved during the election and even all the way up to election night being on stage with them. So, kind of weird, but I find it more weird that she's being dragged and they're trying to bring up old stuff from 10, 15 years ago
Wasn't that when
to
she
try
was
to cancel
married?
her being ambassador to Greece.
It was that was when she was married to what's his name in California, right? Newsom.
Newsom. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Before
know.
her stint on Fox as part of the Five.
Yeah. Plus Newsom, he's got his own scandals, so I don't think he's going to be happy because if they start looking back at her stuff, it just highlight. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this was like a wombo combo leak from someone on the Democrat side to indirectly smear uh, Newsom, since it starts making you ask indelicate questions about what was going on when they were together and him like sleeping with his campaign manager's wife and having to do a
Right.
public press conference about it. So,
Yeah. I
yeah.
I just find it so weird that ambassador to Greece. I mean, that's who you're going to spend political capital on trying to shoot down. It it's just strange. So yeah, it's got to be something deeper, like a connection to Newsom, because basically she's being appointed to throw parties, and I mean, Greece is not a country that we're in any kind of situation with, so it's really just, hey, come over to where we're at, and I'm gonna host a party is gonna be her only job. Why do you care about anything in her past? Um, and then of course we've got Biden is auctioning off pieces of the border wall or trying to, and then we can also hit on the Duke lacrosse, um, admission, and Caitlin Clark coming out basically just as woke as anybody else in the WNBA, bending the
Well,
knee.
yeah, Caitlin Clark is in a hostage video. I mean,
Essentially, yeah.
it stems from the fact that she decided to play in the WNBA. If I were her, I would have taken the $20 million offer from Ice Cube to play in the Big Three, which was more than she was going to make in the WNBA anyway. And if she wanted, she could have still
Lifetime.
played. Yeah, and she got jobbed by Nike too. They're not. I mean, they still don't have a Caitlin Clark shoe, which is ridiculous. They're trying to argue that it's going to take them like 2 to 3 years to make her custom branded shoe, And I'm like, bullshit. You guys have custom shoes out for prospects within a year or less.
Yeah,
If you're
college
motivated.
prospects.
Yeah, the reason they're not doing it is because they have the Las Vegas Aces player signed, and they want, under the degrees of wokeness scale, they want her to be the face of the women's basketball line instead of Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, the problem
Which
is Caitlin Clark is the only reason that a WNBA game has ever sold out. I mean, she is that league at this point. And white girl, so
yeah.
that's an issue.
To John Malama's comments, yes, ambassadorships are rewards for donors. That's the 100% donor reward position.
Well,
So
donors, and in this case, maybe because Don Jr. and her are breaking up, just a parting gift. But
yeah,
who knows? I mean, she's been dating Don Jr. since right before the first election of Trump. So it's been close to a decade that they've been together.
Trump. This is a weird thing about Trump where people don't. He actually has a surprisingly especially with Ivana, positive relationships with his exes. He didn't really have like acrimonious negative stuff. Like, as far as I know, Ivana Trump really still
Well, I
thought he
think
was a
they knew
great
what they were
guy.
getting into.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
they married him. They knew he was going to screw around on them, but they were the one that, benefited from the marriage. So,
yeah, so he's. I mean, so they're pretty. So I wouldn't be. So Guilfoyle's kind of similar. Like, Trump Jr. has a very apparently positive and pleasant relationship with his ex-wife, who he has all the kids with.
mhm,
You would know Kai, the one who does the golf videos,
the
is
golfing.
one of his kids. And so it's weird to say that Guilfoyle, she's always been pro Trump as Donald Trump. And
Yep.
so I think that he would be perfectly fine, like, even if she breaks up with Don Jr., if it doesn't go well, if she's still Team Trump, he's going to give her an ambassadorship to Greece, because why not?
Yeah. And
It's
it's
like,
the perfect job for her. I mean, everybody who has been to a dinner hosted by Don Don Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle says that she is the perfect hostess. So, I mean, it's right up her alley to do something like this, and it's not like she's going to have to be
I mean,
negotiating anything
what
on behalf of Greece and the U.S. So,
no ambassador ever does anything like all right, so during the Cold War, the ambassador to the Soviet Union mattered, like, in terms of
yeah, as a
actual
go between,
as a go between. Guess what? The ambassador to France, not so much.
yeah,
You're there to have dinner parties and represent the US at funerals.
yep,
That's your job. You show up to big events that warrant having an American presence. I mean, ambassadorships are so unnecessary that I would think Trump would even give one to Dr. Jill Biden if he felt like he.
well, the way she keeps looking at him,
I
maybe
know like, hey, give an ambassadorship to someone that looks at you the way she looks at Trump.
you got to get
Uh,
her out of the country before she screws up stuff with Melania.
yeah, he's gonna be like, well, Jill's
Like
gonna
that would
be
ever
our.
happen.
You can be our ambassador to Luxembourg, or whatever they pronounce it. Yeah. Ambassadorships are worthless. I mean, the State Department, if it's anything of note, the Secretary of State goes and
Yeah,
handles it. The ambassador to the UN is a cabinet level post. And so the ambassador to the UN might show up and do something that's a big deal. Regular ambassadorships are for bundlers, are for people who are, on your team but don't fit anywhere else, and you want to give them something nice, so you make an ambassador to somewhere.
yep,
As an example, when Biden got elected, there were rumors that Bob Iger was trying to position himself to get awarded ambassador to China because he thought it would be a feather in his cap. So it's not
yeah.
because he did anything politically worthwhile.
Ultimately, I would like to get an ambassadorship at some point, preferably to some place warm and with, maybe the Maldives.
Promo,
I,
you want
I
to
would,
be
I would
Brahma's
love
like,
to
I
be
want
the
to be made.
ambassador to the Maldives.
I want to be made the ambassador to Jim Beam, and
Yes.
it's like I'm being made the ambassador to Tennessee, where specifically the whiskey brewing zones of Tennessee.
Actually, as rough as I'm looking this morning from a night of bourbon and boarding and then playing Call of Duty, I don't know that ambassadorship would be a good thing.
No. Here's a good one. You
I
can
would
be
find it
ambassador.
hilarious if he asked Hillary if she wanted to be the ambassador and get placed in Benghazi.
Tripoli. Yeah, you can be based out of. Yeah, you can be the Libyan ambassador.
Yeah.
We
Seems
know
like
how
a perfectly fitting place for her to be.
it's a growth position.
Yeah. Very important.
You know, the CIA. You know what? He can go and you know what? Now, after the CIA handled another successful coup over in Syria, she can be the ambassador to the new Muslim Brotherhood led government of Syria. I'm sure they'd really appreciate a female ambassador.
Have another Arab Spring.
What do you say?
So-
Wait, Trump's wife is Greek? Is Greece? She's a real one? Trump's wife, Melania,
Melania?
she's from Slovenia, I believe, originally,
And speaks
right?
like 7 languages fluently. But
Yep.
no, we're talking about Don Jr.'s girlfriend, Kimberly Guilfoyle, who used to be married to Gavin Newsom and was Fox News correspondent for a long time. Hey, Ghost Strike. So how about this $15 million settlement from ABC?
Yeah. So this was classic.
Glorious to see.
Eric, CIA is the one who was DNI. Rent. What is his last name?
CIA pick was
The one who was his DNI in
Radcliffe.
Radcliffe, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew it was an R. So he's the pick for CIA. So he's actually he's a strong administrative guy. Not so much on like being he will execute what Trump tells him to perfectly. So actually I like that for CIA because he's not someone who's going to go off reservation like Gina Haspel and do her own business.
Yeah.
And
then,
with
of course, you've got
with Tulsi at DNI.
Yeah. Over all of them. And I believe Radcliffe actually asked for that job specifically, not to be over it in Tulsi's position.
Yeah, because also
he said it could be more effective if he actually is over the CIA rather than being the person who is over the person at CIA.
So the funny way we separate things in the United States government, there's what's called there's basically walls between intelligence agencies. So the CIA, FBI counterintelligence, which is an intelligence agency, the DoD intelligence agency. Anytime, this is a weird thing. So say the presidential daily briefing has to include intelligence data from all these different agencies.
All the branches, yeah.
Whichever contribution your agency makes, your agency is given charge on declassifying, which is the weird thing, right? Like, so say Trump wanted to declassify his presidential daily briefing for today if he was in office. Trump would send out the request to declassify it. Then it would go to each individual agency and they would be in charge of declassifying their individual section that they contributed to. And if they objected to anything, then it would go through this process. Now, President Trump, as the ultimate declassifier, could overrule everything. But in the previous administration, Trump was deferential to a degree and decided to go along to get along with a lot of stuff early until it got to the very end where they were being troublesome. So that's where a lot of the Mar-a-Lago stuff came in, because Trump specifically declassified that stuff on the way out so he could take it with him and have the Mar-a-Lago operation was a reclaim the data Trump has so he can't get us as intelligence agents operation. If you really want to get into why they did it the way they did it, they wanted to have what he had so he couldn't hold intelligence agencies accountable. So that's why when Biden got in, he retroactively reclassified those things, even though you can't necessarily overrule once it's been declassified. But with Trump, they did a lot of things they weren't supposed to.
Christopher Wray is stepping down.
Yeah. So which is all, it's funny. It all leads up sort of to what this ABC News thing was, because
Yeah.
it goes into the heart of all the different ways they were trying to get Trump. And this one, ABC News, the lawsuits shot off of the E. Jean Carroll case,
Yeah.
which was where
Stephanopoulos.
New York State adjusted their friggin' laws to provide a window to file for claims that were way past the statute of limitation, but they only did it for a 2-year window so they could get Trump specifically.
Yeah, just to go after Trump.
There's a lot of this stuff on appeal is going to have a lot of problems, just like every other thing they've done against Trump. But that'll take a while to wind through. So Trump eventually got convicted by a jury in New York of not, and this is where it's important. On the jury charge sheet for this case against E. Jean Carroll, they had to make specific findings of fact in order to get to the defamation claim.
Yeah,
because
civil defamation case.
Because in order for it to be defamation, one of the ultimate defenses against defamation is truth. So first they have to find that Trump made false statements.
And the burden of proof is much less in the civil case.
Yeah. So the civil litigation, the rule is preponderance of evidence, which means 5149 or 50.1 to 49.9. You know, you have even 1 percentage point above even thinking that he may have done it. So the findings of fact they had to do was that Trump, this was where it's important. The first question was, did Trump casually Brahma E. Jean Carroll and they said no, he did not, which George Stephanopoulos uses the specific legal term of rape. Yep. Around here we call that a casual Brahma. So,
well, you do.
I do. And so will chat.
Everybody who knows mad.
Everybody knows mad. So they said no, they did not agree that happened. What they did check the box for was simple SA, sexual assault. And in New York, that could be unwanted kiss counts. Like, so there's a large degree of range
or catcalling
for what that charge actually covers. Then from that decision that Trump did that to E. Jean Carroll, that they went to the defamation claim. And because they found that he had done that based on preponderance of evidence, that then moved that he defamed her because he said that he never touched her or did anything.
Meanwhile, she was out there giving interviews about how she fantasizes about grape, and
because she found that, and she didn't just say that, she also said that she thought all women would find it sexy.
Yeah.
And that's where Anderson Cooper just immediately went, cut, go to commercial. Like, we're done with this.
Well, and then her celebration after the jury awarded her money and saying how she was going to take Rachel Maddow out shopping, and, we're going to use this money to just have fun and do whatever we want.
Yeah.
So this is see a dollar of it.
So that is the circumstance that leads us to an interview where George Stephanopoulos was interviewing Representative Nancy Mace, who has been in the news lately for her stance against trans activism. So Nancy Mace has made a point and has been publicly open about this since she was 16 when she was raped. Has made a point of being very open and public about that occurring to her, and that being the motivation for her fighting for women's issues for her whole life since then. So in this interview, George Stephanopoulos was trying, and as they try to do often, embarrass her for supporting Trump under the accusation that, hey, as a survivor of this, don't you have a problem with supporting someone who was convicted of doing that? Nancy Mace said, no, he wasn't convicted of that. And George Stephanopoulos, now having been reminded of the information specifically and to his face, repeated 3 times that Trump was actually convicted of that charge. So that's where we get to, this is why it's important. Lawsuit. Though, in order to bring a lawsuit for defamation when you're a public figure, when you're somebody like Donald Trump, you have to prove that they knowingly and with malice repeated a lie to try to hurt you. This is the part. So that's the important part, with Nancy Mace specifically telling him that no, he was not convicted of that. And she gave no, he was convicted of this other stuff, but he wasn't ever found.
It was a defamation case.
Yeah, it was a defamation case. No, but they also, but even so, a jury found specifically that he did not commit that act. That was a specific thing that they found. So it's a finding
Right.
of fact. So, because if they had found that as a finding of fact, Stephanopoulos actually would have been covered saying that because it would have been a court of law decision. So
Right, but you're still
Stephanopoulos,
not convicted of rape
no,
just
but
because in a
it doesn't
civil
matter
case.
if it wouldn't matter if a civil jury
Right,
had
as
as a
far as a
finding of fact.
defamation case, yes. But
Yeah,
that
so
doesn't mean you've been convicted
no,
of rape either.
not in a
Right.
criminal sense, but it's the same.
Right.
So in a lot of ways, this is like OJ, right?
Yeah.
A criminal court did not convict him of the act, but a civil court found him liable that he
Which we may
committed.
also see with Daniel Penny.
Yeah. Um, Daniel Penny's going to have a lot more room for defense than OJ did.
I
So,
think so.
because the other thing about a civil situation is a lot of the stuff that got barred from coming in a criminal court case about Neely and his history of assaulting women
Right.
and threatening people on the subway and then following through with those threats,
Prior acts and
and
everything
his
can come in.
toxicology report where he was high as a kite on a lot of things are all going to be fair game in a civil case that would have, and they're barred because they're what's called prejudicial in criminal cases. Like you can't prejudice against the victim.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Prior acts
you
typically
know,
can't be brought in unless the door gets
directly
opened
relevant,
by the actual
or
defense team.
or unless now the reason that you can also bring in prior bad acts if it proves a consistent pattern of behavior that relates directly to the case. The problem was Daniel Penny's defense team was barred from bringing up the Neely case, and a lot of people think that was an error on the judge's part because the judge ruled that those prior actions by Neely were not a consistent pattern of behavior that was relevant for what happened in that train car that day, even though it was specifically to the behaviors he had repeated and committed in subways previously. So that was an example of, even if Penny had been convicted, there was things for reversible error on
Yeah.
stuff like that. All that it goes to Stephanopoulos now. He's been made aware of the inaccuracy of his statement, so he knows it's false. And then with malice to repeat it the 3 times with venom and invection to try to hurt Trump, that cleared the bar. So a judge had found that because ABC News had sought to get the case dismissed on First Amendment grounds, saying that they have a right to say those things. The judge found that it passes the bar for even against public figures because they had malice and knowledge of the falsity of the statement. So that means it was about to go to discovery. And ABC News, again, remember people, ABC News was the ones who hosted the debate against Kamala and who was accused of providing the questions to Kamala. And ABC said, no, we didn't do all that. Well, guess what? In discovery, if you're trying to show malice by ABC News as an organization, it is relevant discovery to show that they had a consistent pattern of aiding Trump's opponents. And they would have had, so it would have been perfectly valid as a discovery request to ask for all emails about the debate he had with Kamala
Right.
and all internal communications and start asking questions to people under oath. And we already know that one person within ABC News said that they had information.
Whistleblower, yeah.
Yeah, the whistleblower. And so that all becomes protected discovery. So ABC News says, oh shit, why don't we settle this? We're going to pay all your legal fees, which are over $1 million. And then on top of that, we're going to give a $15 million settlement donation to your presidential library. And
Which makes me wonder whether, with Sonny having 7 retractions now on The View,
all that would be relevant.
Even though they're doing their retractions, I still think Hegseth probably could sue her for defamation or sue The View for defamation, because even though she's doing retractions, she keeps repeating the line over and over again.
So guess, and this is a fun fact. Do you know which division of ABC actually runs The View?
ABC News.
ABC News, the specific division that is relevant in the Stephanopoulos thing. So all of that stuff, ABC News, remember, so it was George
Which
Stephanopoulos.
Is why they're open for a defamation case, because they are not considered opinion for some reason, The View is classified as a news program.
Yeah, which is also why they have to do those retractions, because ABC News's lawyers
Their legal team is sitting there
constantly
going, "You can't say that. You
is
can't say
constantly
that."
sitting there. Yep. So they've got to do that, and it's a win. It's a definite win because they also had to pull the videos of that interview, and now it is replaced with a "I'm sorry, President Trump, we did wrong"
Yeah,
statement, like
they
the
are
apology
forced to do
statement.
an actual apology for it. So
Eric, on the question of where $15 million ranks on the cost of other presidential libraries, presidential, like Obama's one, is supposed to cost $1 billion to build. It's being built in the middle of Chicago, though, so its costs are going to be a
right,
lot higher. President Trump will probably tell you he will make sure that his presidential library comes in under budget and on time and is done. I mean, if you want to look at an indicator of what they did with the old post office building in DC, there's rumors the Trump organization is trying to buy that back, by the way, because the Waldorf Astoria company that owns it
yeah,
is failing. It's not doing anything. So they they made hundreds of millions in profits selling that building, and now they're going to turn around and probably buy it for pennies on the dollar if they buy it back, because it's a failing entity.
just
So
just turn Times Square into the presidential library.
I mean, we were talking, the presidential library is 100% probably going to be in Florida. It's going
Yeah,
to be, they're going to
it'll
put it
it'll
somewhere
be
where they,
next to a golf course.
Trump will build, it'll be the first presidential library with a golf course and 5-star hotel.
Resort slash library.
Yeah, so it'll be amazing. So
It's gonna be huge.
yes, it's going to be okay. So it's the Hilton Group. Waldorf Astoria is how they branded that the formerly Trump Hotel in DC,
Yeah,
because that's their flagship luxury brand, I guess,
yeah, they're
name.
5-star
But it's
resort.
but without Trump, DC is not, unfortunately, for 5-star accommodations. Washington DC is not a, anybody who's coming into Washington D.C. who has money is usually staying on the Virginia side and just going into D.C.
Yeah, nobody wants to be in DC.
People don't want to be in D.C. Or you're staying in like right on K Street zone, like where you're basically Airbnb-ing like a really nice townhouse or something. So the luxury hotel stuff, Trump made it work. He knew how to make money on it, and people got on there. So it's DC is not the, having lived, DC is not the best place to hang out in outside of the tourist
It,
triangle of
it's a
like,
crap hole country.
yeah, it's outside of the like touristy section, and even so, even that section is getting a little touchy now. DC has was one of the cities that embraced some of the new policing ideology, if you know,
Yeah,
which is funny because it was over the objection of the actual mayor. Mayor Bowser, who was the mayor at the time, was like, "No, we don't want to do this stuff," but the city council like overruled her because she
was
was
that
smart enough to
Muriel
know. Yeah,
Bowser?
Muriel Bowser. Yeah, she was at least smart enough to know that as the mayor of DC, like the one thing the politicians on Capitol Hill will hold you accountable for is if their people are getting carjacked.
The crime. Yeah,
Yeah,
and there's
you know,
plenty of it there.
the Congress doesn't care as long as the crime stays in Southeast. You know, there. But as soon as that crime starts hitting the spots they're at, that's a problem.
Yep,
So
that's how it always is. Look at
yeah,
San Francisco and Nancy Pelosi.
yeah, like Mark is
It's
saying
only a
that.
problem when there's a crap on her driveway.
Yeah, like Mark is saying in chat, they'll stay. People will stay in Georgetown or Alexandria and just take the metro or an Uber right into whatever they're doing in DC.
Chad, you
So,
should be ashamed. Tell your wife, bless you.
oh well, no, she's fine. She won't hear it.
Well, tell her I said bless you.
I will. I mean, okay, thirsty Brahma.
um, so Doge and the entitlements. So Trump has repeatedly said he's not going to touch the entitlements. But in my opinion, that doesn't mean that Elon and Vivek cannot go in there and look at all of the overspending that's happening in welfare, social security, double dipping, all those things. I mean, it is the largest portion of the national budget.
Yeah, there's
So
nothing that
even though we're
says
not going to cut it, or, Trump is saying he's not going to touch the entitlements, there's nothing that says that they can't go in there and
Waste,
just
fraud, and
clean up
abuse.
all the grift and waste.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I think there's plenty of fat to trim, right? Before you need to
Tons.
get anything into changing people's benefits, you can I before I this is and I come this is a good example, like when the Atlantic and those people put in those articles about like changing the benefits for veterans. I was like, before you touch those benefits, prove to me that you've covered all the waste
Right.
and bullshit. Like if I'm very comfortable that the actual waste and BS is gone, then we can talk about what changes actually need to be made to benefits. But that's not what they've done yet. So Doge has a good opportunity, because I know the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, CMMS, which is the governmental body that controls Medicare and Medicaid, is rife with fat. Just which is one of the things that I like the idea of um, Kennedy teaming up, because he's going to be focused on like mainly the FDA and the NIH and their relationship with big pharma. I don't think he's going to have any issue with Elon and Vivek maybe looking in at trimming the fat and making in an efficient government agency that runs properly at lowest cost possible to deliver the results as needed, before we look at changing any benefits to that.
Right.
Now, I mean, there might be room. The fact that Medicare, not Medicare, but Medicaid, the easy way to remember: care for the elderly, aid the poor. So
Right.
Medicare is for the elderly, Medicaid is for poor. Under the Affordable Care Act, we quadrupled the amount of earnings a person can have and still qualify for Medicaid,
Mm-hmm.
which is ridiculous. For instance, it used to be you had to actually be at the poverty level to get it, but I think it's 2.5 times. Meaning, I think for an individual, you can make like 60 to 70,000 a year in some states and still qualify for Medicaid. And as I mean, we've talked before that that's not always the the most to earn. Like if you're in New York City, $70,000 isn't necessarily a huge
Right. Cost
income.
of living is completely different in different
but
cities and areas of the
um
country.
but it is still higher than it's supposed to be. Like the idea of Medicaid, when it was sold to the American people in the 1960s under the Great Society programs of Lyndon Johnson, was
The safety net.
the poorest among us, the people who absolutely require a safety net, is who we are going to help. And most specifically, Medicaid was designed to aid children,
Right.
poor, the impoverished children. That's why a lot of the programs under Medicaid include the I forget exactly they've renamed it, but what used to be food stamps. It was, and that's why they were food stamps, because they were supposed to be, you can turn them in for genuine food products, and so it's not going to be abused. And of course, we saw that got abused. There's a famous MTV
Yeah.
clip
Well,
of
you used
method.
to have to spend them on actual
Yeah.
food, not on snacks.
So now you get SNAP. That's right. It's called SNAP now. Supplemental Nutritional Aid Program, SNAP.
Right.
And you get a SNAP EBT card, which looks like a credit card. And you can go in and you can buy all sorts of crap under with your SNAP card, including the worst
Which
kinds of foods and
it
all
used to
sorts of stuff.
be you could buy like meat, grains, and milk, that kind of stuff. I mean, there were limitations on it, if I remember correctly. And now it's just, yeah, you can basically purchase anything, I think, except for alcohol.
I
I,
think I think it's even that might be a little touchy. I think some wines might even qualify. It's
yeah, cooking wine. I don't know. But
yeah.
we did hear over what the past 8 years, you would see, normal people going in and having to actually pay for things, and then people who had their Snap EBT cards going in there and buying lobster and steak, along with a whole bunch of crap. And it's like, how the hell are these people allowed to, eat better than everybody who is actually earning their food? I mean, the whole system is a grift.
Oh, Eric makes a great point. Social Security spending, and this actually applies to a lot of other federal benefits,
Yeah.
can also be fixed via the mass deportations like slash immigration moratorium. What is because the federal government purposefully obfuscates a lot of this data, we don't genuinely have an idea of how much money I mean, we are the money we know about is already gargantuan, but they
Hmm.
still make a point of not really telling you exactly what the amount of spending we're generating supporting people in this country illegally qualifying, because a lot of it, what happens is they'll get it through individual states, and then the states will apply for federal grants, and the federal grants will go to the state, and then the state distributes it. I'm looking at you, California. And so we get real, and California is not interested in giving us really good data on illegals and what they're getting. We know from the census data, where the census got caught doing oops, we're sorry, we miscounted a lot of things, how many people illegally were counted in the census where they shouldn't have been.
Well,
It's
I mean, the census is specifically designed to count everybody who's here, and that includes the illegals. I mean, that's
uh
part of the problem with the census.
the census, well, there's, yeah, that's an
It should
interpret
be a census.
well,
It
that's the
should be taking,
interpretation.
yeah, it should be taking count of citizens, but the way the census works at the moment is it counts literally everybody who is in the country.
And do you know
And
why
that's a
that
problem
was?
because of apportionment.
That goes back to the slave owners
Right.
demanding it, because and much like California, it's amazing how similar the mindset is. Much like California wanting credit for all the people who aren't actually citizens so they can get the federal dollars,
Right. The
slave
South
owners
wanted credit for
credit
the
for all
people
the
that they were not
they
calling
wanted
people.
credit for the bodies that they weren't calling people. But
Yeah.
when it came to federal apportionment,
Yep.
so that was why they had outsized congressional representation but not Senate representation. It
And they're
was,
still playing the same game
and
today.
and they're still doing it now, which is terrible. It's for people to
Terrible.
understand, it's terrible.
Terrible.
Illegal immigration to Democrats now is what slavery was to Democrats in the 1800s. They're just looking at it the exact same way.
Well,
They
and it's not just in the apportionment thing. It's the, well, who's going to pick your crops? Who's going to clean your toilets? Who's going to do this? I mean, how many times do you hear the Democrats use those specific lines about immigrants, illegal immigrants?
looks like you got a super chat, Brahma.
Yeah, we got $1.99 from Nick the Greek, wishing you Merry Christmas before I'm too drunk. Way to start the day, Nick.
Brahma was like, I was too drunk last night.
Yeah, still feeling it.
Still feeling it. Feeling it. Feeling it. But
I'm feeling it here.
it's yeah, so that's actually an excellent point from going back to Eric. Like, I think
Merry
that's another
Christmas to
thing
you too, Nick.
that's another thing Doge can work on. Like, if we just run these benefits the way they're supposed to in conjunction with the mass deportation,
Yeah,
trimming the fat there, I don't even, it's hard to fathom, once we unlock the American economy the way it should be instead of the way it's been. I have
then you
We have
get a
no idea.
turnaround that
Yeah,
looks ridiculous compared to, say, Argentina, who's
exactly.
managed to go to a surplus instead of a deficit for the first time in 123 years after just, what, a year, 2 years of Javier Milei. If they look at the same model and just cut all the waste, America's starting at a completely different place than Argentina was. I
Yeah,
mean,
he got elected in 23.
yeah, so it's been a year. He has now turned that country completely around to the best it's been in 123 years. And Argentina, for a long time before it went down, Argentina was a very, very good economy.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast that kind of stuff can go.
Yeah, cut out waste. Weird. There's a lot more money. I mean, the Dems over the past few days have been trying to pick apart Trump on saying that, yeah, it can be hard to bring the cost of things back down. That is always the case. I mean, every time something goes up, it's very hard to get it back down. But this is the way you would do it. You get rid of the illegal immigrants. You cut out all the fat and the pork spending, and there's no reason for the prices to stay high. If you are drilling for oil and all the transportation costs go down, it does end up getting passed on. But yes, I mean, he's being realistic. It is hard to get companies to bring a price back down after they've managed to get a price up, because it becomes like the new normal,
Yeah,
which I hate that term, but there are ways to do it.
I mean, there's a lot. I think we have so much potential because the United States is gifted both in geographic location. We are very protected from the risk of invasion or aggressive behavior. On, we have two very non-militarily powerful nations immediately on our border. I mean, Mexico is allowing things in economically that are problems, but I think nobody thinks there's a genuine chance the Mexican army is
Right.
going to invade the United
No,
States.
it's more likely that the cartels would be the army that would do
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, and on the other hand, on the northern border, we have Canada, which, as Trump has joked, could become a 51st state anytime now. So that gives you an idea of where we reflexively estimate their military capability on. You know, point being, like, we have on two sides the two biggest oceans in the world, with the Atlantic and Pacific giving us a giant border.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Canada and Mexico to the north and south of us, creating immediate buffer zones, nationally. So
And then we've got the most armed populace on the planet.
we've got the most armed populace. Any country that would make the mistake of choosing to invade the United States would run into civilian issue, like whatever sectarian violence you think happened in a nation like Iraq or like,
Yeah.
is nothing compared to the amount that can be brought to bear. Like, the capability of the average American gun owner in terms of what they can bring to the party is much greater.
Which is what I always found hilarious about Red Dawn. It's like there's not a chance in hell anybody would have gotten into Colorado, into the heart of the country. It would have been stopped long before then. That was the most unrealistic portion of
No,
the
well, they
movie.
paratroopered into Colorado.
Yeah, but that's going over a lot of the U.S. before they're paratrooping. I
Well,
mean,
they came in from Mexico. I mean, that if you listen to Red Dawn, they do say that they got as far as the Rockies and the Texas zone, like depending on where they were coming, up from Mexico,
yeah,
and they got pushed back by the average, like, because the military wasn't ready to respond immediately, but the average citizens pushed them back,
right.
and then the military came in and
I mean,
took
it's
care of things.
realistic in that the U.S. has, the most armed populace that they would be able to repel the invasion like that. It's just funny that they picked someplace like Colorado where you've got to go over a good portion of the country from any direction to get into Colorado. But yeah, I just always found that one funny.
Well, that's why they were using the Cuban army there, because it made a lot of sense. So yeah, I mean, it made I love Red Dawn, so I don't want to nitpick it. It to me, it's as logistically as sound as any setup would be, because Milius did make a point. They used paratroopers to invade. They went in. I mean, as much as you love Colorado, it's very sparsely populated, so a small group of
Yeah, in the
military
mountains, it
commandos
would be.
could take over. Like, you wouldn't need a huge amount to take over towns, because it doesn't take, if you take the arm, with an armed force by surprise, the civilian population. And they were smart. That's why I like the lines. They immediately at the beginning, and this is one of my favorite stealth conservative lines: go to the gun sporting goods and gun stores. They're going to
Right.
have paperwork they have to keep because this is what is it's kind of a dig at the federal government. These places are required to keep forms on who bought guns. Look them up. Those are the people we go
That's the
for
people we've
first.
got to. Yeah.
We get them before they have a chance to do anything. And even with doing that, there was still kids and other people who got out into the mountains and started messing their shit up.
Yep.
So I mean, I think it's as sound a setup as any invasion of the United States situation could be. And now that the
Yeah, I
West
don't
Coast,
disagree. I just find it funny.
but now that the West Coast, well, now that the West Coast has predictably has been predominantly just run by left-wing people for 25, 30 years, and with the idea, and you do that in combination with we've allowed millions of people over the southern border who could be sleeper agents
Right.
to be, you know, like, if you wanted to make a new, like, I know they already remade Red Dawn once and it failed, but if you wanted to remake a Red Dawn, now would be the appropriate time because they've actually set the table effectively in the real world to allow the entire West Coast could be taken before the military response would be able to get up and running.
Yeah. Well, and since we're talking about invasion of the U.S., what do you think about the drones?
Yeah, that's a nice segue to the
Because
drones.
I think Chicoms.
You want to know where my conspiracy theory brain is? It's the U.S. government.
I mean, it's either the U.S. government or I think the Chicoms.
No, it's the. I
I
think
don't
it's
think it's
the.
Iran.
It's the U.S. government. This is where I think it is. It's the U.S. government. I think specifically it's the radiation sniffing drones,
Yeah, looking for a dirty bomb.
and they're either a someone thinks something actually went off, which would be bad. I don't think it actually happened. I think it's more likely this is be a test where they're just testing because it makes sense for them to do. Look at the locations they're setting them up. Right in New Jersey, right around New York City. The new Port of New Jersey and New York City would be the most likely targets for a dirty bomb. The next areas that would be most likely would be Virginia around the Federal Triangle.
Baltimore.
You know, and that's now we've noticed Youngkin and Maryland. That's where we're seeing them again too. I
Mm-hmm.
think they're doing some tests where they're checking on the efficacy of these drones actually, and they're probably got, not to scare people, they've probably got people with low level non harming radioactive material type things in cities to see if these drones are actually detecting what's, you know, where it's supposed to.
Right.
And you know, and they're just, and because it makes no sense for the government to be this tight-lipped about something that they're not running.
Correct. Because they have to know who it's from. The only thing the only thing is it is Biden's government and we did allow a balloon to float over the
Yeah,
country
that
for
that is
how
the
long?
one. Yeah, and
I mean,
eventually we shot it down.
I
Yeah,
don't trust anything that they say
yeah.
at this point.
No, but I
So
think
them saying that we well, there are two things that they're saying. A, that the drones don't exist and everybody's just looking at regular, plane traffic like nobody's ever seen a freaking plane. And B, that yeah, they do exist and we know where they're from or don't know where they're from. I mean, none of the information coming out of the government is reliable at this point.
yeah. Mark's in the chat did. I don't think they're foreign. They have FAA compliant lights. That's another reason.
Yeah,
Like even our military aircraft, like F-16s, F-18s, they still have the lights as required for travel in U.S. airspace, which is weird.
yeah,
The red, green lights and strobes on them. So I think again, there's now some people in chat are talking about maybe it's because they expect a possible scenario once Trump goes in office, possibly on inauguration day. There's been a lot of floating threats allegedly from Iran, who would have the material to specifically make a dirty bomb over an ICBM type bomb.
right.
So if you believe that hype, yeah, then that's the genuine risk. I mean, I still think it's just because they're running a test and they just aren't making it public.
Well, they've made it pretty public.
Well, I meant that they're the
I
ones
know
doing
what you
it.
mean, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty public at this point. Everybody's seeing them. So we're thinking more sum of all fears. Tom
Yeah,
Clancy.
yeah, that's my guess is that it's a American military operation, and I think if I saw reports a little while back that we had fleets of these radiation detecting drones, and they're car sized, you know, because they have to have a lot of that equipment on there,
Right.
which seems to correspond exactly with what we're looking at in New Jersey.
The weird part is, um, some seemingly verifiable accounts of it being not seen on radar.
I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, the
Like I
radar.
said, seemingly
Who
verifiable
controls the
accounts.
radar? I mean, the FAA. These are everything that we would be getting this information from
Well,
our
they're
government
being seen
agencies.
over like actual military installations and stuff too.
And that's
So,
another thing. If these were foreign drones genuinely doing this over military installations, they would make no mistake. The U.S. military has anti-drone capability. It's not
oh yeah,
something we didn't research and have built in. Like we can take drones out. We can
we
microwave
have
them.
drones that can take
Yeah,
drones
we have
out.
drones that can do it. It's ridiculous that they're doing it now, but I think part of it is that this is where it does come into which administration it is. I think the military industrial complex knows they can get away with checking these things now, and they may not be able to in a month. So why
Well,
not
and the
run the
weird thing is,
operations?
why not just be honest about it? Because in a month, the new administration can just come in and say, "Yeah, this is what was going on."
Because you want what you want to do if you're
It's like
doing
they're
this.
trying to put everybody on edge as much as
Well,
they
yeah,
can.
because they want to. If you're going with the psyop component, you want to
Yeah.
judge how people react to this when they don't have the information. Like, how far can you
How
push
long does it
people?
take before people
Yeah,
start shooting at them? Because that has been reported as well now,
yeah.
that people are
So
shooting at the drones.
yeah, so it's that's what they want to gauge. Like, at what point would the civilian population start taking down the drones that would be like? Because you want to know when you do a test. I mean, it's if you're like a heist, say it's a heist movie as a good example. If you're testing police response to the bank with an alleged robbery, you
Yeah.
don't want them to know that it's an actual drill that's not happening. You want to get the genuine response time.
Response time.
So in this case, this is the psyop because they want to gauge the genuine public response when people don't know to see how long it goes before they have to, before and what actions, like how long before Florida man shoots at the drone,
Right.
how long before Appalachia redneck goes out there with his 50 cal that he hasn't told you about and shoots down the drone.
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff that they want to figure out is what, like, because they want the data, because eventually when Trump's not in office, a lot of these, because they want to get this data now, classify it and keep it compartmentalized for themselves, so that the next time super left-wing people are in charge, if they need to put down segments of the population, they have data on it.
Agreed.
I think that's why by January 6th wasn't a plan. It was a nice data gathering operation for how, like, if we push the people
What it
and they're
takes to
really
push
like,
the
yeah,
right to
yeah,
actually act.
and if they act, are they going to act like actually enforce?
Are
Like,
they
what are
going to
we
act like
dealing
the
with?
left, or are they going to act
Yeah,
like people who are actual responsible citizens? Well,
yeah.
that's another thing we can bring up. Um, the report that there were 26 embedded FBI people, not agents, but possibly informants, or I mean, there's a number of things that they could have been on January 6th. But I mean, they specifically said not agents, but the FBI did have 26 people embedded, and 3 of them actually went into the Capitol. And yeah,
Which is a direct
weird.
lie by Christopher Wray.
Correct.
Or I shouldn't say he directly lied, because they're too smart to do that. What he said in the hearing was, I don't believe I know that," or "I don't. To my knowledge, we didn't have any agents
Yeah,
there." They
agents
always
specifically.
they'll pick specific language so that they can't actually get held to account. So the follow up question by a lot of the people is like, "Did you have any assets or
Right.
or confidential informants (CIs) that were in there?" And he would say, "To my knowledge, we didn't have any agents, and I don't know about anything else," because
That's
that's how they do
very
it.
convenient.
So what happens is, if you're the head of the FBI, you don't need to get briefed on who's a confidential informant.
Yeah. plausible deniability,
Plausible
even though
deniability.
you are in charge of the FBI.
Yeah. And they do it that way on purpose so that if someone has to take the fall, it's never the person at the top. It's going to be a mid-level or lower manager who gets that. Well, so and so didn't tell us that they were running this out. Look at, as an example, with Operation Fast and Furious, with the straw purchasing gun running program that the ATF ran,
Yep.
which promptly gave guns to the cartels and never tracked them. And shockingly, they were surprised. They
Shockingly, the
never,
guns were used to kill American
yeah,
citizens
they were,
afterwards.
and they weren't, and they got in trouble. The gun owners, the gun shop owners, didn't want to sell, and the ATF had to come and tell them it was okay to sell them the guns. And the gun shop owners, well, this seems like a sketchy purchase. We probably shouldn't do it. The ATF, it says no, go for it.
Yep.
Fine. And do you remember? Just quick quiz chat? How many people got fired for that?
That would be 0.
That would be 0. None. Nada. Zip. And that was one where law enforcement people in the United States were murdered using these guns, and not one person even got a reprimand on their record for running this operation.
Much like the failures at Secret Service just this year. Nobody got fired. Somebody resigned, but that's not getting fired. I mean, they let a former president who is currently running and leading the presidential race get shot at, and nobody got fired over that. It's insane how hard it is to get people out of this government once they're entrenched. And corrupt people, and incapable people, all of it. I mean, we like somebody said in chat, Cash Patel can't get in there quick enough, and Elon and Vivek can't get in there quick enough and start just dismantling stuff. I love that Linda McMahon is saying, "Yeah, we're sending education back to the states." I mean, that is
Yep.
exactly what we need. Unfortunately, I'm in a crap state for it, but the red states will be good.
Exactly. It's a question about what you can do based, like we've talked about it. The as much as we'd like the federal government, like the president, to be able to just unilaterally just nuke an agency, unfortunately, once it's been created, you do have to take steps to have it removed from, from creation. Like when, so you can't necessarily unilaterally destroy the Department of Education. What you can do is put a secretary in and use Doge and them to basically gut the
Defund it.
agency
Yeah.
from working it, and then basically convert all the monies you get into giant block grants that just go back to the state until such time, with no strings,
Right.
until such time as you can get rid of the agency.
The problem
That's,
is the unions that are so very much entrenched in the Department of Education are going to be hard to pry out.
well, that's the thing. Trump, under the unitary executive theory, these unions and civil service people can bitch all they want about their protections. Trump can fire them all. What
Yeah.
Trump needs to do, and that's the thing, what Trump is, what civil service protections rightly protect, is if Trump went in and said fire all the black people. That would be illegal. That would be a civil protected, like, zone, right? Where you're like, you can't just fire people based on immutable, that's a clear and important word, immutable characteristics.
Correct.
What Trump can do is say, I'm downsizing 95% of the Department of Education because I don't think that the people working there work for the people's interests. So I'm just firing you. You're, like Linda McMahon, you have my authority to remove 95% of employees.
Yeah.
That's legal
Because it's not targeted.
because it's not targeted. He's just firing people. What he's also like, if
It would
Congress
be
were,
in a normal company, it would be called downsizing.
yeah,
Or laying people off. So yeah, I mean, he could definitely do that. They can definitely redirect funds And I think Linda McMahon has no problem doing it on behalf of Trump. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of room to where, as long as Trump is doing it from the unitary power of the executive and not doing it to go after a specific protected class, they're going to be out of luck. Going at, like, if Trump just says across the board 25% of government needs to be reduced, we're downsizing our all agencies 25%, because I don't think, and this is, like, say this is where Doge comes in and gives him the cover. Doge does that, and it's already come up where Doge did that, like when Elon did the tweet about how only like 5% of federal workers actually show up to
actually
work.
report to work. Yeah.
Yeah, like they go in, they Doge does its recommendation showing that all these people are redundant, are not working, are not valuable, and then Trump uses that to downsize and fire people. He's pretty much free and clear to do that.
Well, and you've got cover as well in that the Department of Education has done nothing but lower the competency of our schools and our kids.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
agency started in 1979, and none of our test scores have gone up.
and they've consistently gone down. We're now what, 24th or 25th in the world for level of education of our children.
Well, it
So,
is a little
and
misleading.
now all they're getting is education on gender theory. So, CRT and gender theory, two of the things that were said were never going to be in elementary schools or middle schools. That's all college stuff, and that's all that seems to be getting pushed anymore. So, I mean, once again, the conspiracy theory turns out to be correct. I can't wait. I know my kids. I mean, one's already out. The other one is a sophomore. It's not going to affect them all that much, but for my grandkids and for everybody else's kids, it needs to be fixed. I mean,
The dirty secret
the
is
generations have just gotten dumber and dumber.
well, public, and I shouldn't even say public, but because I think that gets I would say system based, like the system, the government based education isn't designed to create free thinking, innovative people. It's
No,
designed to
they teach
create,
to a test,
yeah.
not teach to learn,
Well, not even
like
teaching
how
to,
to
yeah.
learn.
Yeah. So I've gotten in this, we homeschool our son, and even, I've discussed it with my wife, and she thinks I exaggerate, but I stand by this statement. We haven't had any truly innovative thinkers that didn't come out of either private, like homeschool type environment, or come out of abandoning and dropping out of institutionalized
Colleges,
school.
right?
Like, when she would be, bring up, what about Steve Jobs, dropped out? What about Bill Gates with Microsoft, dropped out?
Dropped out,
And if you start going over, like, even like the people who founded like a lot of the companies, like they weren't formally educated. Like Henry Ford started building cars, he didn't have a formal education in car building. That
right?
was, none of that came from formal education, system based education, what the government told you was important from education. Right. Another good modern example is like, if you watch like October Sky, which is the true story of like Homer Hickam and the like West Virginia kids who learn, built rockets because they
Yeah,
were, instead of going to the coal mines. They ran into a lot of pushback from their own school doing that stuff. Like
yeah,
because they didn't want to train you, like in that area the system was designed to train you to be coal miner. That's what you get enough
that's
education to
that's
be
what
able to
people do
go
here.
down and work in the coal mines. um so even that, where they went to public schools, and it's supposed to be a great story of the American public school, and what we can produce. No, they did most of that learning on their own, completely independent,
Yeah,
slightly supported by
self-taught.
with one teacher who went off the reservation and encouraged them. And then they ended up like building homemade rockets that were capable of doing, great stuff that showed they actually knew what they were doing for rocketry.
Right.
And that's,
I mean, and essentially same thing. We're getting with Elon Musk.
I
I
would
mean,
say, as an example of look how good NASA has been since the 70s when we stopped having like people who self-taught themselves these levels, these things, like because there was no all the guys who were who were doing rocket science in the 60s, that was a whole new field where they were inventing everything and coming up and like having to do it on their own.
yeah, so
By
breakthrough
the
after
Yeah,
breakthrough after
by
breakthrough.
the 70s we had formal institutionalized school systems designed to produce guys who do that, and we haven't had anything truly innovative. And then you finally get somebody like Elon Musk who's truly trying to innovate and encourages like outside the box thinking, and he's landing effing rockets on moving boats in the ocean when
Yeah,
everybody who was in NASA and was formerly in the Jet Propulsion Lab and had PhDs and went through all this government stuff said there's no way we can do that shit.
yeah. And Elon's sitting there playing pitch and catch with rockets that are, gigantic. And that truly is the only way you're actually going to do anything involving space. You can't just have, use once and throw away technology. You've
No,
got to get it.
and eventually you're gonna 3D printing and actually launching stuff from orbit is the real key, because if you can eliminate the need to have to escape
Yeah,
you
having
to
a
do
space platform.
yeah, if you can eliminate having to reach escape velocity from ground based launches, you cut out what is it, like 40 or 50% of the energy needs of your interplanetary travel.
I think at least. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, if I was trying to redesign the public school system, I would focus on fundamental education and just let kids do self-study electives outside of it. Like you focus on every kid should have foundational arithmetic, every kid should have foundational grammar, every kid
Reading,
should have
writing, and math. Yeah.
all the like that basic stuff. Fine. I even and this is what I didn't bring up is history. Like this is why I'm even wary of letting history get taught in public schools, because even when you think history is just giving dates and times that things occurred, what's getting put in the book and what isn't. Like
Right.
there's a lot. You once you get into history, it's very subjective about how you interpret things like that. So I would
And
say
who's writing it. Yeah.
like foundational basic knowledge, foundation in basic economic theory, even like capitalistic theory of like supply and demand, just do some basics. And then you don't need to do more than that. Like, why are public schools teaching? Why is there a gender affirming club in a public school? Fuck off.
Right. Yeah.
Like
Why is
public
Tim
schools shouldn't
Walz
do
able
anything like
to
that.
to
I
start an
would I
LGBT
would say that
group?
if you wanted to do like by high school, I think you continue your foundational thinking, classes, and you can add some basic vocational because that's good for everybody to know. Like
Yeah.
shop class was good.
Some of the trades.
Like every man and even women should be going to shop class and learn basic ability to operate tools and craft like material like things so that you can fix things at home.
Right.
Shop
Or be
class
able
was
to do
great.
your own oil change.
Yeah, I mean, now that cars, if your cars even allow you to make an oil change without having to go through the computer systems to open a valve,
And
that's
we
where going.
absolutely need civics being taught again.
Yeah, just basic and basic foundational stuff. I don't want any kind of interpretation. I don't want school teachers getting into that shit. And that's where you get into touchy stuff. Like, what if they ask questions? You talk to, I want you to answer the question within the context of the basic foundational education. And then outside of that, you should tell the kid, do your own research and find your own conclusion on that, because that's a deeper question that isn't really just we founded the nation in 17 whatever, we wrote the constitution,
Or
the
if they're
first
asking
president.
questions, have the class debated.
All right, so a good example that's coming up, Loudoun County in Virginia. Slender will know because he knows a lot about Loudoun County. There is a teacher who's getting just crucified because he was doing a historical lesson. This is high school kids.
Hmm.
A historical lesson about the cotton gin and how important it was as an innovation to retaining the economic, health of the South. And in the lesson, he brought in a piece of raw cotton, unrefined, and handed it out into the classroom so people could get an understanding of
Well,
why it
you
was
have
so
to separate
difficult.
it out. Yeah.
And guess what? I mean, I'm sure you can guess what happened. He's getting crucified
There was a
because
black student.
it was insensitive, and this was really a sensitive topic, and he should have discussed it before he brought it up to anybody, because there were two complaints from. Yeah, I don't understand why bringing in a piece of raw cotton on its own is a sensitive topic. He didn't hand it to the black students and say, hey, this is what
Hey,
you would have been
only
dealing with.
you two
Yeah,
touch this. Yeah.
which
It,
is, it's ridiculous. Why
it's
is he
stupid. Yeah.
like this story is taking, this teacher is being sent to re-education. He's being like, he's going to be re-educated on how to do things properly. And all he
Yeah.
did was bring in and it's a perfectly valid for American history. The cotton gin as a tool that basically kept slavery around for another 50 years is a perfectly valid thing to cover, because without the cotton gin, the economics of slavery would not have been sustainable, and that it would have probably collapsed under its own weight within 10 years or so, because the cost, and this, people don't like the economics, the cost of maintaining a slave population versus what your return was on the product were getting so out of whack, you couldn't do with it.
Yeah.
But the cotton gin flipped this economic script because it made cotton super refinable so that you could get more return on your investment. And it's
Right.
and
Innovation.
any rational history lesson about the American South pre-Civil War is going to go over that, because it's necessary to understand the economics that drove the slave system and kept it going. But to pretend we're going to now pretend that and we can't talk about it, which is why education, I said, like you, if blue states are free to do their own thing, you're probably going to see they're going to swing completely the other way and do sensitivity classrooms, and you won't be able to talk about anything.
Safe spaces. Yeah.
Safe spaces. So it is a catch 22, right? You're worried, like, as much as we'd be happy about local control of education, if your state is purple to blue, that's going to end badly. The real key is school board voting. Go out
Yeah.
there and check your school board and make sure because the school
That's what I
board
was
has
going to
more
say.
direct
Run for your
control.
school board,
Yeah.
because even at the state level, if it gets thrown back to the states, you can still control the schools through the school boards. And oftentimes there just aren't people running for those positions.
I like
So,
what Lord Shack says. All Brahma hears is gin.
Jim,
Cotton? What's cotton?
I just think it's funny that they act like those students have never had any contact with cotton before. I mean, sure, raw
It
cotton,
is
probably not,
I mean, the look,
but
the feel of
chances are
cotton.
you've touched
It's the
cotton.
fabric of our lives, Brahma.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, we're going to pretend that this is not a thing, and apparently, we got teachers getting in trouble.
Yeah.
It's a reason. It's a reason, I think, one of the many reasons that I know Slender evacuated ASAP out of Loudoun County. Yeah, we need. This is what. Yeah, we need a Scott
Well,
Pressler for school boards. The one thing the Republican Party, as much as they've made great inroads, they still are very weak on the local level. They
yeah.
need to get better. We need to have more, especially look at states like Texas. Texas is has been one of the reddest states forever. We still have rhinos running things at the state level, making sure like that stuff's not going. Utah's a problem. It's supposed to be red. The way they run their state is questionable.
Well, it's a lot of California moving into Utah since they've
Oh,
already gotten Colorado under control.
we can also we can say the third rail. The mighty Mormon Power Rangers are disappointing us on a political level.
Well, yeah.
They're I mean, Harry Reid was Mormon and managed to use that to his advantage every time. So, not to say that
Yeah.
being Mormon is necessarily bad, but I'm saying as an institutional group, they're supposed to be conservative and vote for right wing, but they never do. Like we got Mitt Romney.
Romney. Yeah.
I mean, Mike Lee should not be the outlier as a senator from Utah or congressman.
Yeah, it should be
So
one of the most conservative states in the country.
Yeah, but we
And
don't
now
get that.
it's consistently turning bluer and bluer with each election. So
South Carolina, you're a problem. How are you sending us Lindsey Graham
still,
still? I mean, you're supposed to be red state. Luckily, Florida got the memo. And I mean, Texas, we got Cornyn, right?
yeah,
So that's a problem. And we're going to see what happens because I'm interested to see how DeSantis handles appointing the replacement. Because
yeah.
right now we've got Rick Scott, who's a pretty solid, good senator. Rubio had gotten the message after his drumming in 2016 in the primary and had turned into a really solid
Well, I think we know
senator.
who's going in.
You still think it's Laura Trump?
I think it's Laura. Yeah.
I've heard
I think
DeSantis
that's
was
why
pushing back
DeSantis
on it.
was meeting with Trump, because Trump was directing that. It wasn't ever about DeSantis being appointed in place of Hegseth. I think it was, here's what the plan is.
See, the problem for him is that Senate seat is the only avenue for relevance for DeSantis by 2028.
Well, it's like the other option that we've talked about it is him appointing his wife as a placeholder.
See, I think he might put someone on from his staff, but same idea, placeholder.
Placeholder. But I think what actually needs to happen is Laura.
I still I know Laura's from North Carolina originally. I kind of want to put her in reserve to maybe primary Tillis if he goes
She'd
off
have to move
reservation.
there.
Oh, like that's a problem. I'm sure Trump has a property in North Carolina.
Yeah, I don't think she wants to be in North Carolina though.
Oh, they buy another house. It's fine. Point being, Tillis is one of the questionable guys we get out of we got him out of North Carolina.
Yeah.
Oh, Eric says he thinks it's going to be Casey DeSantis. Hmm. Casey DeSantis is the right's Joe Biden. That is correct. Casey DeSantis is a out damn spot, Lady Macbeth type. I would. She's got the crazy eyes too. I'm very
Yeah.
happy that she recovered successfully from her illness, though. I don't think that should happen to anyone. I am. I'm hoping. Prayers to Nancy Pelosi to get over her hip replacement that she just had, tripping down a marble staircase on her congressional delegation trip to wherever it was in Europe.
Right.
Um, this should be a message possibly to Miss Pelosi. I hate the fact that somehow she goes with Speaker Emeritus, like that's an official title.
Right.
Um, I do think I want credit to Mike Johnson to removing that from her and taking away her office. That was like the Democrats had let her keep a special office and a title Speaker Emeritus. Like when you're in the
Yeah.
actual
You're
Congress
not the
building,
freaking Pope.
you get assigned an office and it's based on like your rank. Like the Speaker of the House has the best one, and then like the people in the majority party get nice offices. And the Democrats, when they were in charge, had given one of those offices to Nancy Pelosi in emeritus, even though she wasn't the leader anymore.
Right.
And Mike Johnson was the one who finally was like, "No, get out. You get a
No.
regular office."
Yeah. Should have
So,
given her a freshman's office.
yeah. So, but what I'm saying is maybe this is a sign, a clue that you are probably past prime and need to retire from representing people in the Congress.
And to bring it to our side too, Mitch McConnell should get his old ass out of there.
And McConnell already set it up. All right. So a lot of people are worried because, they have
He's
Bevins.
malfunctioning again.
They have Bevins in Kentucky. So, but McConnell got his people within the Kentucky legislature to pass a law that when someone leaves from a state elected office, like which is senator, it's only senator,
Right.
state elected federal office, that the governor can only appoint a replacement from the party that the person who left was. So the party, like in this case, the Republican Party gets to submit 3 names to Bevins, and he can come choose from those 3 names, and
Right.
that's it. That's the only. And if he doesn't make a choice, the Republican Party of the state can choose who would get appointed if he won't make a choice amongst the 3.
But in the last week, he's had a fall where he got a cut to his face or something like that, and then they put him back on camera after that, and he had another freezing moment. And I'm perfectly fine with calling out both sides on this. You
The
don't
yeah
need
the
people these ages
yeah the
in
software
office.
update from his Chinese wife didn't go through properly, so
Right.
he
Yeah.
got frozen.
But I'm not going to sit there and call out Pelosi without calling out Mitch McConnell.
No, I
They
mean
both need to be gone.
the idea that we have these people who cling to being senators, and I mean, I'm going to be honest, like Grassley, right? Grassley's a little long in the tooth too. I don't like anybody person being in the Senate in their like 80s. I understand we just elected Trump, and so that's a weird thing to say. Trump is kind of the
Trump is
exception.
transitional, I think, because he's filling his cabinet with basically millennials and some Gen X. I mean, he's not sitting there surrounding himself with people as old as he is.
Yeah, I would say Trump is also an exception in how energetic he is for his age.
Right.
So I wouldn't hold I don't he's a very different. Yeah, Grassley is like ridiculously like he's from Iowa, so he gets all the deference because of the power that Iowa has as a early state.
Yeah. And Grassley's still, you know, semi functional. But yeah, I am tired of the boomers being in charge of everything. They need to relinquish their grasp on all politics in the country. They have enriched themselves and left every other generation behind them to not be as well off as their parents and grandparents were. And part of that is individuals, but it's also they just will not relinquish any power that they've got. That whole generation needs to finally step down and let somebody else step up.
We can chalk a lot of the problems that the United States has had to the boomers screwing things up royally. I
Yeah,
mean,
and I mean, yes, it's a thing that the generation fights, which really didn't happen until what 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But yeah,
no, it
you can
happened.
look at the boomers,
Think of I mean there's the boomers were the ones who demanded 18-year-olds get the right to vote because they were boomers and they should be able to vote early.
right?
So they got that. And then the entire 70s was boomers taking over Congress post Watergate.
And they've
And
kept it ever since.
they fucked it up.
Yeah,
Like Congress used this is shocking. I know, but people need to know this. You know that Congress we used to have government shutdowns pretty often and
and
nobody
we still
cared
should. Yeah,
because it wasn't a big deal. The Congress still tried to do the individual spending bills for the individual parts of government to
yep.
fund them as needed. And it's just since the boomers have taken over, they've tried to they boomers are the ones who came up with this government shutdown theater where the idea that if government shuts down it's the greatest sin of all time, and they put up the signs. It was
Well,
under Bill Clinton as a boomer president where they started putting up signs at the monuments saying you couldn't. That never happened before. The government had been shut down like 27 times under Ronald Reagan and he never shut down the Lincoln Memorial.
yeah.
It's an open
I mean,
air
they
set of
act like the
steps.
essentials are going to be
Yeah.
what's going to go away, and it's like, no, that's not what happens.
No,
And I
yes.
welcome the government shutdown coming because I think we will get a few this time. And I think Trump will just stand there and be like, go for it. I don't care. We'll see. But we are getting to that point where we're supposed to be shutting down as well. So
Yep.
um, I think we touched on everything, I think, except for maybe Duke Lacrosse, which ultimately it was just an admission that the whole kickoff to the Me Too movement was all based on BS, because that was one of the earliest things I can remember that started that whole thing of just women making accusations and everybody in the country going with it. So good, I guess, that she finally admitted it, but we all knew that. So whatever on
Yep.
that one. And we hit on Caitlin Clark. WNBA's stupid, and Caitlin Clark is stupid for bending the knee. It may be the only way she survives playing in the WNBA, though. So
Well, yeah, they tried to murder her this last season.
repeatedly, yeah.
I mean, if
But they also, wouldn't put her on the Olympic team. I mean, she is the only star they've got, and that's how they treat her. I mean, she's dumb for bending the knee, but she's dumb for going along with anything that the WNBA is doing with her either way. So
I agree. I think like I said, I refer back to she should have taken the big three off her, been the face of that league. Ice Cube would have flown her around, treated her first class.
yeah,
But I mean, she wanted, I think sometimes people are very afraid of kind of rocking the boat and trying to do that.
yeah,
Like trying to go somewhere new and put risk on it's tough.
yep.
She's
Well,
and she's risk averse. She wants to just play. We'll see how that goes.
yeah, we'll see, but I'm still nobody's going to be watching her either way. So, I mean,
Well, they'll watch
the league
her.
did
They just
better.
won't watch the league.
I don't know that people will watch her now. At least people that heard these comments, they're probably looking at her. And she bent the knee. Who cares? I
That is a
didn't need the
problem.
WNBA before, and I don't need it now. So,
Hey, Mad's in the chat.
what's up, Mad? So, what do you got coming up?
All right. Well, whatever we're playing Tuesday, probably still Party Animals. We had some fun doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's here on Brahma's channel, his Party Animal stream, which is Tuesday around 10:15 p.m. Eastern. And then our flagship show on our Ascendant Art podcast with me and Slender co-hosting on Fridays 9 p.m. Brahma's usually there. We got Imp hanging out with us. Mad says he'll be there, and then messages at 4 a.m. When's it start?
When are we going?
When we start. Yeah, even though we used his new intro that went over awesome with Imp when he saw it.
And a guy named Imp.
And a guy named Imp. It was, I think we had a fun. We brought our trivia back last week, a whole new different kind of trivia, which
Very different.
was different, and the chat really liked it. A lot of positive comments for that. Very nostalgic trivia. Mad doesn't need a wrench. Mad is the wrench. I don't know if
I
I
gave him
trust
a wrench.
Yeah, there you go. Mad's got a wrench. All right, so yeah, that's what I got. So if people are watching, look up Ascendant Art here on YouTube, like it, subscribe to it, please. We're trying to get our sub numbers up so we're chasing that monetization, and we'd appreciate if you can drop the sub. If you watch, that's great. But
And we
if you
have
can at
fun
least
on
sub
Friday nights.
Yep. And we get all sorts of bad take Bojan lore. It's a fun show.
Yeah, we do.
She takes her Ambien, and then all sorts of stuff just comes out.
Yep.
So that's good.
Many admissions from the past.
Yeah, get that. And occasionally, occasionally Culture will show up, and it's always fun when he's on there trying to say things.
Mhm.
It's PG-13 to R-rated Culture on our show, not PG Culture. So if you ever want to see what that is like, yeah.
Yep.
As Slender says, if our episode count ever exceeds our sub count, we're folding up shop. Yeah.
Well, that was episode 150 on Friday night. So
Yep, and we're at 307 on sub count. So we've got a couple years to get the numbers up. We're putting up rookie numbers. We got to push those numbers.
yeah, and I think we do need the trivia segment because everybody seems to have fun with that. It's more interactive with chat. So I know it takes you time to make it, but I think it's worth it. And yeah, everybody go sub. I just put the link to Ascendant Art in the chat, so just a quick click over there. As for me this week, no Culture Casino tonight because it's his mother's birthday, so he's taking the night off, so I won't be there. Monday and Thursday over at Comics. Wednesday, I believe we have a Christian panel where we will be covering Homestead from Angel Studios. Still haven't seen it yet, waiting on my screener. So hopefully we get those by Wednesday. Friday night, back on Ascendant Art, and then Saturday over here on my channel, we've got Bourbon and Boarding every Saturday night, going over hockey, the weekend hockey, and having a little bit of bourbon. And then I wake up very early to do this after that show. So, hey, and Bad Take just became a member at the pasture level. So thank you, Bad Take. But yeah, that's what we've got coming up. Hope everybody has a great Sunday, and we'll give you an intro as an outro and catch you later. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Broken system chained and tangled up in light. Voices shouting, screaming in defeat. Politicians playing games under darkened skies. Hope lost in the dust of the street.